Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, the Nintendo Direct that wasn't, but still could be? It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We are going to be talking about the news from the week, including what some data miners have discovered about the NES Switch Online. And then on Thursday, we are going to be talking about New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe and Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. So, tune back in for that. But Mark, in the meantime, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Did I do those? Did I say the names of both of those games?
I thought you did beautifully.
Because each of those games has like a 30-word title, and I'm just doing the best I can to get through it.
It reminds me a little bit of like if you go to Disneyland, they don't call like a California Adventure. They don't call the Little Mermaid ride the Little Mermaid ride. They don't call the Monsters Inc. ride like just Monsters Inc. It's like Monsters Inc. Not cola.
I would drink a Monsters Inc. cola.
Monsters Inc. My Console to the Rescue, or Ariel's Undersea Adventure, The Little Mermaid. I don't know why they do that. Like because nobody calls them
right
by their full name.
You just call them by whatever attraction they are based off of.
Just like we will probably call these games New Super Mario Brothers and Mario and Luigi. Maybe Bowser's Inside Story.
I think Bowser's Inside Story. I think that is a fine way to refer to that game, especially because like you know exactly what game it is when you say that. Saying Mario and Luigi before it doesn't help you at all. Mark, before we get into everything else we got going on, we got to do some like housekeeping,
but like in a fun way.
Well, right. I'm
like
not
in a Mary Poppins sort of.
That's right.
Like
we both put on little French maid costumes.
That's not Mary Poppins does not put on a French maid costume.
It's been a long time since I've seen
it. She puts on a English maid costume.
She's just always wearing that though, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess
like a saucy hat.
No, I don't. I don't.
In the new one, she's wearing a saucy hat.
Oh yeah, no. In the new one, she's very saucy. Sass for days.
Mm-hmm. So Mark and I were just on a podcast. We were on You've Got Hanks, on which we discussed the movie
Mazes and Monsters.
Yes.
Which is Tom Hanks' second movie ever.
You've
Got Hanks is hosted by friend of this show, Rachel Chapman.
Mm-hmm. And also she is one of the hosts of the Inside the Disney Vault podcast, which Mark and I have also both been on. And so you should check out our appearance on that show. If you've never seen Mazes and Monsters, it is the 1980s made-for-TV cautionary tale against Dungeons and Dragons. Like that, if you, it posits that if you play Dungeons and Dragons, you will totally disassociate from reality and stab someone and get lost in New York City. It's a bad movie, but Tom Hanks is in it, so we watched it and talked about it. Did I sum it up pretty well?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it.
So check that out, and rate and review that for us and for Rachel, and that'll all be great. Something else you can do for us is you can send me an email with your address so I can send you my copy of Sonic Forces.
And you couched that in really good terms, Patrick, because it's
How
true.
Do you mean?
People, well, you said like something you can do for us.
Yes.
And that is true. People borrowing your copy of Sonic Forces is a gift to us. It is a burden for them.
No, it is a service to me. You get this thing out of my house. By the way, it's been out of my house for the last couple months. I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's ever coming back. But I would still appreciate people signing up to be on this list and borrow my copy of Sonic Forces. Last week on Thursday, I couldn't say our email address because you weren't here, but I'm comfortable saying it now. You can email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. I don't know what I would have done without that. The whole show would have fallen apart.
You found a really good way around it.
Thank you.
And one last thing before we move on.
Yes.
Thank you so much to Eat, Sleep, and Play for leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, thank you.
Guess what? You can be like Eat, Sleep, and Play and leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. It genuinely delights me. every time I see we get a new review.
Yeah, it delights me as well, and it also makes us easier to find. So do that for us, and hop on over to that You've Got Hanks and review that too, because it'll help that podcast. Podcast helping podcasts. It's not a pyramid scheme.
No, it feels like it is.
Right. Just because you have to, like, in addition to sending back the copy of Sonic Forces, you do have to send $5 as well.
But it's just $5.
It's only $5. It's the next person will send $5 to you. None of that will happen. Do not send
none of that
money
is
through
true.
the mail.
Don't. Yeah.
All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. Now, you told me this weekend that you finished Pokemon Let's Go.
Yeah, in a sense.
Oh?
Well, okay, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Right? Is like, I think last time we talked about Pokemon Let's Go, I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty far in the game. I think I'm at the Elite Four or whatever it's called. And do you know why I thought that?
I don't. I have no idea why you thought that.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought that either, because I wasn't. I had just finished the first 4 gyms, so I had 4 badges, and so I was like, oh, well, there's 8 badges. Of course, I'm at the last 4.
Uh-huh.
No, that was not true at all. So I finished, but I have since then finished the final 4 gyms.
Okay.
And now I am at the Elite Four. But I feel fairly accomplished.
So now,
I
wait a
beat,
minute,
like, the 8 gyms.
So that's do credits roll at that point, or do you have to beat the Elite Four in order to?
I have not seen credits.
Okay.
Yeah.
And credits are something that's like an accomplishable task in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not just like from the title screen you go play credits.
No. Like, I think after you, I mean, this is all hearsay, but I think after you beat the
I'm sorry,
Elite Four,
I'm asking you for this. So you've beaten all 8 gyms, you've got all 8 badges. Now the last obstacle in your way is to beat the Elite Four.
Yeah, but I'm feeling like pretty good about myself. Like, I don't know that I'm going to beat the Elite Four. Like, I'm maybe fine not seeing the credits.
Well, so this was what I was going to ask you back when I thought you had beaten Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, because that's what I was told. Is do you plan on going back? You had mentioned maybe going back in there to try and get the Mewtwo.
Yeah.
But now it sounds like your self-esteem is too high, and you have no need to go back and
well, I do
revisit
have
this
a
game.
Master Ball, so if I beat the Elite Four, it would be pretty easy for me to get Mewtwo.
I have never heard you sound so cocky about anything.
Yeah, when you really look at it, I didn't accomplish much, but
Yeah,
I feel good. So I'm coasting off of that. Like, I feel like I finished the game, and that's good enough for me.
I feel like that's as good a place as any to move on.
I'm checking it off, like, my backlog,
Mhm.
and if I eventually want to return to it, that's cool.
So if your 2018 resolution of knock some things out of your backlog was part of your 2019 resolution, we would at least sort of count this one.
Right, and like maybe I could technically count this as playing games in a new way, like not finishing a game, but saying you finished it because you feel like you did.
I don't know if lying should be one of your resolutions.
It's not lying. I'm admitting I didn't finish it. I just feel like I finished it, and that's turning out to be like good enough.
Speaking of good enough, this is a horrible segue because it's not even what I mean. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, we both have been playing some more of it. How have you been spending your time in Smash Ultimate?
After last week's episode with Matt as our guest, I went and played a little bit of World of Light.
Yeah. How are you finding the experience of World of Light now that you are
Feel
more
like compelled to
interested in
move
it?
forward?
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. I'm not like that much further. I just did like the F-Zero part,
Yeah.
which is still pretty like early
Yeah,
in
it's
the
still
game.
real early, just like to the right side of the map.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
I kind of like I don't know. It seems nice. I like it's basically just like the spirit board with walking in between.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also happy just doing the spirit board.
It's so interesting to me how into the spirit board you are, or at least like content with the spirit board. I generally like doing the World of Light much more, just because it does feel like there's context to what I'm doing. But that being said, most of the time I've spent with it has just been hopping into regular Smash battles now and just having fun with it. Have you unlocked all the characters now?
No, I'm closer, but I was looking at it and I think I still have like at least 10 to go.
Oh wow. We should sit down and knock those out.
I'm actually
get them all for you.
I'm enjoying the leisurely pace.
So this is just like let's go Eevee for you. Is you're like, yeah, I've unlocked most of the characters. I'm done.
No,
I got them all.
I'm not done. Like I'm actually in, but I don't feel any rush because I'm not taking it to a tournament or anything, and it's not like I'm having a bunch of people over to play.
Right, people that are going to be upset and be like, you haven't unlocked Palutena yet? Can you imagine if someone came over to your house and they were mad at you for having not unlocked Palutena yet?
I can. I don't like it.
No, me neither. I don't like it at all. Obviously, we have been playing the 2 video games that we are going to be talking about on Thursday.
You don't want to say again?
Oh, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story and Bowser Jr.'s Journey and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. We will talk about both of those on Thursday. I also got my copy of Fork Parker's Crunch Out in the mail today.
Remind us all what this is.
I'm going to remind us all what this is. A couple months ago, Devolver Digital was having a fundraiser for a charity that supported like developers in fighting crunch, or like giving resources for developers who are, like mental health resources or whatever, who are working at developers where the work is hard and the hours are long and the treatment inhumane. So they, as a part of when you donate to this thing, you get a Super Nintendo game. It is a Super Nintendo cartridge that plays in your Super Nintendo. And so we just popped it in and played it for maybe like 10 minutes. And so you take on the role of Fork Parker, who has a video game studio. And at least at the beginning of it, you have 4 developers, and your job is to just keep them working. So sometimes they'll fall asleep and you need to give them coffee. Sometimes they die and you need to shock them back to life with a defibrillator. Sometimes they're hungry and you give them food. There's also a pig running around who like tries to like eat your profits or something. As far as like being a game goes, whatever. It's silly, and the gameplay is pretty simplistic. It's got a cute sense of humor. Where this Fork Parker, I tell you what, is just a bad guy.
Yeah, not very nice.
He just wants to make money at all costs.
He's like Mr. Monopoly without the dashing top hat or monocle.
Yeah, or the tails on the coat means a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. It really does.
If you're wearing a suit without tails,
why bother?
Why bother at all? You don't look anything like Scrooge McDuck. Get out of here with that. So anyway, I got a new Super Nintendo game today.
Yeah, it was really the most enjoyment I got out of it was opening it up and pulling, like, they have a really cool manual that's very much like a Super Nintendo manual, and just like picking up a new SNES cartridge is a kind of surreal experience.
Yeah, it feels weird. It got me thinking about and I'm not going to remember the name of the game, but there was that like SNK like new fighting game that came out maybe last year or 2 years ago that was also like a new Super NES game. All these things about which I am still very curious, but I don't know that I want to like throw down the money for. The Super Nintendo is a beautiful system and I love it, but it has its limitations. I don't. If people perfected the art of working in those limitations in the 90s, they did that then. I don't know that people going back to those same limitations now are necessarily going to be well equipped to actually give me a good gameplay experience. Fork Parker's Crunch Out is not a good gameplay experience, but it's a neat little thing to have.
For sure.
And I'm glad I have it. And now it's on my shelf with everything else. All right, Mark, let's get into that. That's what we were playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Speaking of terrible working conditions, hey, The Walking Dead, the final season, episode 3, is coming out on today, January 15th.
So is this one that... So Skybound Entertainment got it, or Skybound Games.
Yeah.
Or both. Skybound.
Yeah.
It like
got it from Telltale.
Yeah. Got it from Telltale and got most of the team back together, right?
I don't know how many of the team, some of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the internet was afire with, The Walking Dead is shutting down, or the Telltale is shutting down, and The Walking Dead is history. And then when Skybound stepped back in and we're like, we're going to get as many people as we can back on this game. I don't know Has anyone really like followed up on that to be like,
Feels very whisper quiet to me.
It does. Which as far as video games and studios with a lot of money go, like probably no news is good news. Okay. News.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Hopefully, everything at Skybound is fine. Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully
everything at Skybound is fine.
I'm sure the people that they hired, a lot of them were like contractors who are done after this job, anyways.
That's a good point.
Anyway, The Walking Dead, the final season, episode 3, is out today. On the 16th, on Wednesday, we're getting the January update to the NES, Nintendo Switch Online. That's Blaster Master and Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link
now
are being released.
First of all, it's just The Adventure of Link.
He only has one.
He only has the one adventure.
Yeah.
Never mind, this is a sequel. I really like The Adventure of Link. I know you and I have talked about it a couple times on this show. Partially because it is on the NES Classic. But I will take almost any opportunity to play this game again. But I don't know about Blaster Master.
I don't really know about Blaster Master either. Can I ask you a question about Zelda 2?
You can, of course.
How, when you say, I want to play this game again, how long of an adventure are we talking?
What do you mean?
Like, can you do it in one sitting?
No, I can't do it in one sitting. However, I could probably do it in like 2 or 3 sittings. Yeah, so it really only takes a couple hours, and a lot of this game is like, this is the game that I had growing up. My buddy Pete had the original Legend of Zelda. I had Zelda 2. And so we would play original Zelda at his house, and then Zelda 2 was what I would play when I went home. So this is the game that is like actually in my, I have those tracks laid in my memory. So it can be obtuse at times, like really obtuse. There's a village that you have to find in the game that you just have to chop down some trees with a hammer, and you just need to know where it is. Otherwise, you would never find it. And a bunch of other things where you have to blow a whistle between some rocks. It all is like stuff that you just need to know or look up in order to play the game. And I would recommend that anyone trying to play this game now, you got to treat it like Simon's Quest, right? Just look up the things you need to look up. And the game is action oriented enough that even if you know where everything is, the challenge is still there. The challenge is still in successfully doing the platforming and successfully doing all the fighting. And the combat is pretty good in this game. You've got your high and low shield, and you can attack with a jumping attack or a ducking jumping attack. And there's also the upward thrust and the downward thrust, and Link's got magic. He's got a lot of options when you go into any combat situation, and it actually makes for kind of an exciting game.
And then on Friday, January 18th, Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes is released on the Switch. I feel like and this is partly because I haven't sought out the information, I really don't know anything about this game.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, except for me, that I have also not sought it out. And I don't really know anything about No More Heroes or Travis Strikes Again.
One thing just in general that I thought was interesting when I was looking this up is that it's $30 if you buy it digitally, but $40 if you buy it physically.
Now, what accounts for that, do you think?
I think it's just it's published in North America by Grasshopper Manufacturers.
Okay.
And I think since they're a smaller company and Switch carts are
more expensive.
More expensive than a Blu-ray or a DVD, I think that's how. I think we've seen it not a ton, but it's not super uncommon for third-party publishers to especially smaller ones, to have that $10 differential.
Well, and one of the things that will make a Switch cartridge more expensive, it's all obviously a matter of memory, but the carts that are more expensive tend to be those that have more cutscenes or recorded actual recordings of music or VO or whatever. And the previous No More Heroes games, they're fully voice acted, right?
Yeah, I guess they are.
So I wonder if just having all of those cutscenes and stuff, that's one of the ways that like Mario Odyssey is a tiny game, like there are no long stretches of like video or audio files just like filling that thing up.
Yeah, maybe. Again, I don't really know anything about this game. So.
Yeah, great point. Maybe there's none. And the $10 is arbitrary. All right, Mark, let's close out the new releases here. Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we are going to read our horoscopes today. Before we get into that, how do you feel about horoscopes?
I am excited to read them, but I don't do it very often.
Why are you excited to read them? Just because it's fun to like...
Yeah, it's like getting a fortune cookie.
Yeah,
you like open it up and you're like, oh, this could be true. Maybe I should smile more.
Ooh, here's the great thing about a horoscope when compared to a fortune cookie. You don't have to eat a fortune cookie after. I don't like a fortune cookie.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a bad cookie.
Oh, gotcha. If they called it something else, like if it was a fortune cracker, would you feel better about it? Is it the cookie part that sets up expectations that the fortune cookie?
Yeah, if someone says cookie and it's not a chocolate chip cookie or an Oreo, I'm gonna be upset.
Somebody needs to give you a lot of warning if they're going to mention cookie and it's not one of those two.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to offer me a cookie and it's not one of those two. Someone could be talking about cookies, and if I'm not presented with one of those two, I'll be okay. But if I'm offered a cookie and then someone gives me like an oatmeal cookie?
What if they... Well, I happen to like oatmeal cookies, but what if they like preface it by saying, I have oatmeal cookies, do you want one? Because then you like know what you're getting into and you can politely say no.
It makes it better. And I will politely say no, but I think our friendship is over.
You still don't like it.
Right.
I understand. That's fair. That's completely fair.
So which of these are we going to read first, yours or mine?
How about I read yours?
Okay.
And then you can read mine.
Okay. So I'm a Virgo.
You're a Virgo. I'm reading the January 15th one.
Okay,
FYI.
great. Oh, I will switch mine to the January 15th. And we are getting these just because we lack imagination from horoscope.com.
Hey, I mean, if somebody has a better place to grab a horoscope quickly, I'd love to hear it.
No, I mean, and I assume that these people got on this URL because they are the foremost authority on horoscopes.
Okay. January 15th, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you're likely to feel especially communicative, Virgo. You might want to get on the phone and run ideas for new projects by colleagues, or perhaps make arrangements to complete current projects. Success through creativity is strongly indicated at this time. This is a great day to seek success through writing or speaking. If this has been on your mind, get started.
Oh my gosh. Success through speaking? I like it. I mean, this is, I am taking steps towards more seriously writing and all that sort of stuff and being a creative man. So I think this is dead on.
Yeah, I mean, we were a little bit sassing horoscope.com, but I feel like they nailed you hardcore.
Let's read yours now before we run out of time, and just so we can say that this is also nailing you hardcore. Also, just for the record, I don't appreciate being referred to as Virgo. Okay.
I'm a Sagittarius.
Mark, Sagittarius. Okay. Today you will feel especially optimistic and enthusiastic, Sagittarius, although you may not know why, at least at first. Later in the day, some good news could come your way, possibly involving business and money. This should tell you that you are intuitively picking up on something wonderful. As a matter of fact, your intuition should be high for most of the day. Make it work for you.
That sounds awesome.
That does sound awesome.
I'm really looking forward to tomorrow now.
Well, I mean, it's let's couch this in that later in the day, good news could come your way.
Yes.
Possibly involving business or money. It could be bad news about family.
But I'll make it work for me.
Yeah.
Because that's what they encourage me to do.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, look, if you can make whatever's happening work for you, what else could you possibly ask for?
Yeah, not much.
Yeah.
This is actually really good news for me because today was a little bit like the fact that they're looking for an upswing for me is positive because today was a little bit rough.
Why is that?
Well, okay, so Oh,
no.
no. Well, there you go.
I guess we will never
Never
know.
know.
Mark, you have to tell me why. Why today was a little rough.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll try to make this quick. I got up this morning, looked at myself in the mirror, was feeling fine. Got about halfway through the workday, and I'm like stroking my chin, as one is wont to do when you have a beard and you're like thinking. And
you don't have to tell me twice.
And I feel something like on my chin, on a unbearded part. Friends, I am very sad to tell you that somehow between the morning and that moment,
I
had a huge pimple on my face.
All day
And
you had this pimple on your face?
I don't know when. Obviously not all day.
Right.
It was like, I don't know. It was one of those really annoying, not morning pimples or night pimples, like a day pimple. I was interfacing with people, not knowing that this pimple was on my chin. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. For tomorrow is another day.
We were accompanied today by the Brussels Chamber Choir. Mark, let's get into the news.
Okay, so last Tuesday, a bunch of Nintendo news dropped.
Just on Twitter.
Yeah, which this is directly in relation to the joke at the top of the show.
Yes.
I feel like, obviously the best kind of jokes are the ones you have to explain, but I feel a little responsible for our cold open because I pitched it, and so
I feel like most of our cold open jokes do need to be explained. That they make us laugh because we're like plugged into the new, like we're just transcribing the news.
We see where things are going.
Right.
Okay, so last Tuesday, a bunch of Nintendo's news dropped. Capcom is bringing a port of Dragon's Dogma to Switch. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is being released April 23rd. It's a action hack and slash RPG that was released in 2012. I kind of think of it as like a cult favorite. It sold over 1.5 million copies, so it was popular when it was released, but I feel like the only times I ever hear about it now are in enthusiast circles.
Yeah. And I mean that I have nothing further to add about Dragon's Dogma.
Yoshi's Crafted World, we got a release date for that. It's coming March 29th.
I'm excited about this. I'm very much looking forward to this game, and March 29th is kind of earlier than I thought it was going to be. I don't know why I had it in my head that it was going to be in April sometime, but that wouldn't actually be that much earlier than I thought it was going to be. It's only like a month, but yeah,
mere days.
So coming out soon. I'm excited about that.
It looks super cute.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, and they dropped another trailer.
They dropped another trailer for it, and I just like in the background. Yeah, there's all the platforming stuff happening, and that's cool. But, in the background, there's just a shy guy walking around holding something above his head. I don't know. It's just real fun. I like it.
We should never discourage Nintendo from taking the opportunity to be cuter than they need to be. Do it every time.
Yes, please. Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn is coming to Nintendo 3DS on March 8th.
Man, I really like the original game. I'm interested to see how this one transfers over to 3DS.
We also found out that there's going to be some amiibo functionality. You can scan compatible Kirby series amiibo to earn hats and abilities.
And it looks like the compatible Kirby amiibo are the 4 Kirby amiibo that released around the time of Kirby Star Allies.
And on the Nintendo website, it says number of players to be determined. So, when they brought over the Yoshi's Woolly World and Poochie
and Yoshi's Woolly World.
Yes, of course.
Right.
Was that was that multiplayer? And was that the first time that game had multiplayer?
No. So Woolly World had multiplayer on the Wii U. I don't know if it had multiplayer on the 3DS. This game, Kirby's Epic Yarn on the Wii, did have 2-player simultaneous, and it's weird to me now that they're not stating whether this game is multiplayer or not.
Oh yeah, I guess my assumption based on this wording was that it would have multiplayer, but maybe just more than 2. Although I guess that doesn't really make sense for the 3DS.
No, I mean it is not clear to me that there is multiplayer in this. So
That could be as well.
maybe we'll find out more about that as we get closer to it. But I mean, it's the game. It's a even as far as these good feel games go, is among the like lower impact ones. Like there is no fail state. Like you cannot die. You take hits and you lose gems, but like as soon as you get down to 0 gems, no one's hurting you ever. And a lot of what is fun about the game is just experiencing all of the like cute visuals, and having another person around to do that with is what was so enjoyable about that game to me in the first place. I would find it kind of a bummer to play it by myself.
When a couple of weeks back, maybe last week, we were talking about Bowser's Inside Story being released, and I mentioned at the time that was like, oh, the last big Nintendo 3DS release. I had totally forgotten about Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn.
I had too.
Now that this one it has a release date and will be released in early March, do we know, are there any other outstanding Nintendo developed / published 3DS titles?
Not that I'm aware
Yeah, not that I'm
of.
aware of either. But again, I guess who knows what the future holds.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, we learned that Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD Remaster and Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age, are releasing April 30th on Switch. Still no release dates for Final Fantasy IX or Final Fantasy VII, but we know they're coming at some point.
Yeah. Are you interested in either of these two games?
So I've never played
arguably 3.
I've never played 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of fond memories of 10 and 12. If I was going to replay one, it would probably be 12. I'm curious how like 10 actually holds up to replay.
Yeah, I remember the like combat system in 10 being really interesting, and having that like that you can like see the map of like which characters go next, and it's not like an active turn battle system. I think 10 and 10-2 are games that I'm interested in replaying, especially if it has, and I guess I need to look into this, if it has any of the like sort of quality of life fixes that some older Final Fantasy games have as they're being re-released now, where like I can just level up characters without having to grind. Because I liked that game, but I never finished it. I don't even think I came close. And it would just be nice to experience both of those 10 and 10-2, those narratives.
Have you played 12?
No.
I think you would like it. And the Zodiac Age, I haven't played this version, but I think it's like you were saying, one of those like quality of life enhanced versions. And I think you would enjoy it.
Well, I am open to. It's weird, like I consider myself such a big fan of Final Fantasy, and like I never finished 10, and prior to that I had played all of them. Like I finished 7, 8, 9, 6, and 4. So like I've played a lot of these games, but from halfway through 10 on, I haven't really played any of them.
They're also just like, the thing that's stopping me from wanting to buy these is I guess the 2 that I've played, I haven't played 10-2, are like overwhelmingly large. Like to me, it feels overwhelming to think of how much time I put into them, and having to like do that again to have the same sort of experience feels overwhelming. That's kind of my hesitation on picking these up.
Yeah. Yep. And my hesitation as well.
So all of this news has people wondering if Nintendo won't be doing a January Direct this year, or if, I guess just because, like, why announce when Woolly World is coming out, or the Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn release dates and stuff like that, if you were going to have a Direct where you could mention it there.
I mean, it is
or like Dragon's Dogma.
Right. So Dragon's Dogma is the only like real like new announcement out of any of this. The rest of it is just release dates. And like release dates are fun, but as part of like a Direct, especially for something like Kirby, it's kind of just like, yeah, okay. It for Kirby and for Final Fantasy X/10-2 and 12 the Zodiac Age, those are games you can play other places right now. So having a date that you can play them somewhere else, and ditto Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah.
Like it's all just, here are games that you can play somewhere else. Here's the day that you can be playing them on Switch. That doesn't make for the most exciting sort of Nintendo big announcements. I still hold out hope that we will get news of a Direct at some point in the next like week or two. But maybe not. Maybe what we think we know about the Nintendo calendar doesn't mean anything, and they'll do a direct, this summer or something.
I feel like we throw out this caveat every time we mention Nintendo Direct, but one could be announced by the time this episode is posted.
Absolutely.
Rocket League players can now connect with users on PlayStation 4. The game is now in the PlayStation Cross-Play beta program, which means users can play matches against players on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Steam.
Great.
Cross-platform parties are coming with the first big update of the game later in 2019.
Is this exciting for you?
I think it's cool to see cross-play. I
Mhm.
would love if that just became a standard feature next generation.
Yeah, that just anything that you wanted to, because I am on a text chain with some friends of mine who almost exclusively play on Xbox. So whenever they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna hop into like Sea of Thieves and try it out," I'm like, "No, okay."
Yeah, like I know it's a competitive advantage for the console makers. Like if it's definitely in last generation. Why I started with an Xbox 360 and ended up getting a PlayStation 3 because all of my friends had a PlayStation 3, and so if I wanted to play with them, that's what I had to buy. But
It feels less like a competitive advantage that like either one of the either Xbox or PlayStation have over the other, because like they just have different games on them. Yeah. So I don't know. It just it does feel like a weird little hiccup. And for the games that we people could be playing together, I would rather that they be able to play together.
yeah, absolutely. So some potential spoilers here for a future Mario Tennis Aces character. So
Look out. So look out for spoilers.
yeah, oatmeal cookie
Uh-huh.
coming your way. Dataminers have discovered code that indicate Link will be joining as a playable character sometime in the future, including Dark Link and Champion's Tunic alternative looks.
So is his sword a racket?
That
Does
could
he
be
have
fun.
a master racket?
Yeah, like it's a sword hilt, and then there's just like a
that's pretty
racket
cool.
part in it.
Or
I'm
it's
into it.
It's like a blade with just like a racket on the end of it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm into that. That could be fun.
Yeah, cool. Put more characters in this game. A little bit weird that it's Link, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean the rules are pretty loose. Like he shows up in Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, and Link, I think at this point has maybe just become like a comfortable guest character in Nintendo stuff. Just go ahead, just put him in anywhere.
Speaking of data miners,
Skyrim, he can be there.
Ganon shows up in, or not Ganon, but Ganon costume shows up in Diablo 3.
Yep.
Speaking of data miners, there are rumors that 4 emulators have been discovered within the NES Nintendo Switch Online app.
So this takes a little bit of explaining. So the Nintendo Switch NES Online thing runs the same emulator that the Super NES Classic does. And that emulator is called Kachi Kachi.
Yeah, that seems to be the code name for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it's a little bit of assumption that it's running the exact same emulator. But
I thought I had read that somewhere.
But it seems, or that's what everybody believes. But I don't know that it's like 100. It's not like confirmed.
Right. Okay. Sure.
And so they found 3 other code names, I guess, in the code base. Canoe,
Mm-hmm.
which
and that these are all code names that they believe to be emulators.
That's
correct?
right.
Yeah.
So Canoe is everybody, and I'm not entirely sure why, is assuming that it's the SNES. And like maybe the emulator from the SNES Classic, and maybe that's actually how they know, is that
Right.
they're like, oh, this is very similar to, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that connection was made. And then another emulator is Hyoko, and that's unknown. Nobody's sure what that is in reference to. And then Count, which also nobody is sure what that's in reference to.
Right. Okay. So wild speculation time. First of all, this means maybe there are Super NES games headed to the Nintendo Switch Online.
Which, amazing. That
Right.
would be amazing.
Amazing, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But these 2 other emulators, what could those emulators be? Are they 4 other Classic Edition consoles? Does that mean that other system games are also going to be coming to the Nintendo and whatever it's called, the NES Switch Online app.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
There was some speculation that it was an N64 and a GameCube. I wonder if one of them is actually Game Boy or Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, or both. I mean, I wonder if these two are Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. Like, I would assume that you need different emulators to run. Although I don't know, because the Game Boy Advance could play Game Boy games. Do you need like different?
I'm not sure if that's because it had like the hardware.
Yeah, I don't know
inside.
either.
Yeah,
or if it was somehow emulating.
but that kind of makes a little more sense to me, because those are both like basically an equivalent of like an NES and an SNES, so we're not making that generational leap to N64.
Yeah,
which would like, I guess you wouldn't need an N64 controller, but
it does. It starts to raise other questions though, of like how exactly do you play it. Yeah, because the N64 controller is strange, and the one thing that I don't think we're going to see a GameCube emulator on this thing. One of the like sort of persistent problems with trying to port over anything from GameCube is that you have to account for the
analog
triggers. Yeah. The original GameCube controllers, it knew how far you were pushing the trigger down, and the Switch does not have that. No controller does now, right?
I don't think so.
Are the Xbox controller triggers?
I'm not sure.
I don't know either. But regardless, that's not how the Switch itself works. So any game that they would have to put out would have to be doctored in some way. Just even for those like simple input changes. And for something like Super Mario Sunshine is a big deal because that changes how much you're using the flood and all of that. So yeah, I suspect that these are either a Game Boy and Game Boy Advance or a like Game Boy. Maybe that's all one emulator, and then the Nintendo 64, which I still think is a better use for it, for like a Nintendo 64 emulator, than doing a classic edition, which I still think doesn't make any sense.
I guess I'm a believer. I think that the classic edition, it will be coming.
Yeah,
and I kind of think it's a 2019 thing.
Oh, really?
But so I would be surprised if we see N64 games on the NES Switch Online. If an N64 Classic Edition is coming,
yeah,
I would be surprised if we see those games show up on the Switch Online before that is released.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that it could be like a Game Boy / Game Boy Advanced emulator as one, and then an N64 emulator as the other part.
Right. And, it's always possible that this is a Game Boy emulator and a Virtual Boy emulator.
It's entirely possible.
Although, if you're going to put a Virtual Boy emulator on anything, put it on the 3DS. It can play
for
in
sure.
3D.
They totally should. It
infuriates me that they haven't done that yet.
It's weird because they are, they like cheekily reference the Virtual Boy now. Like for a long time they wouldn't mention, like they didn't mention it at all.
Right.
Virtual Boy did not happen, and then it started to show up in places, and now it's like shown up in enough places that we're like, yeah, just like give us the games.
Yeah, like, look, I get it. You're ashamed. I spent $130 on this thing. I'm the one who should be ashamed. Let me play the games.
So part of the reason why people are really confident that there's an SNES emulator coming to Switch is that references to over 20 SNES titles were reportedly uncovered in the current Nintendo Switch Online app.
So these are just references to the titles.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I know.
So this is very exciting.
Yeah.
Because look, I like Nintendo games, but I love Super Nintendo games.
And the timing is right for this because at the end of this holiday season, Nintendo has shipped the last of the NES Classic Editions and the last of the SNES Classic Editions for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
They are not making any more of them currently. So that's the perfect time to bring an SNES simulator or emulator to the Switch, because you can have a lot of the same games that were available in the Classic Edition,
Yeah.
Um,
Also, I don't know if you caught there was an article floating around this last week from Kotaku, I believe, that was sort of detailing what is happening to Nintendo YouTube videos that Nintendo puts up on their YouTube channel that say anything about the online service, and that they're just getting like flamed with negative comments and people downvoting videos, basically ragging about how poor Smash is online and the sort of anemic offering of NES games, and just that this is a thing that is happening. And I do think, not that your mileage may vary on how much value you think you're getting out of your $20 a year. It's $20 a year, come on. But if they were to dump a bunch of Super Nintendo games onto this thing for a service that people are already paying for, I think would buy them a lot of goodwill.
I would love to see that be the tack they take, which is dump a bunch of games on it. My worry is that these 20 titles will be trickled out over 10 months.
Drips and drabs.
Yeah.
I mean, but with the first one, or with the NES app, they dropped like 15 right at the front, and then like three more a couple weeks later.
Yeah, it just feels like a lot of those games. Who cares?
Yeah, that's true.
And there's just such big holes still in the library. It's like, come on! I know that part of what they're trying to do is be like, hey, there's online play with all of these games now. Yeah. Isn't that cool? But I don't care. Like, personally, like, I would rather just have an extensive library of NES and SNES ROMs that I can play on my Switch without online functionality. That's like my dream. If they dumped all of these on at one time, I would feel much happier than if like it was like 2 or 3 a month. I'm not surprised that that's the way it is, right? But I would rather it not be like that.
A big dump would be nice. Should we go through the titles that are referred to here?
Sure. Yeah, there's not like a ton that's a surprise, probably.
Here I'll run them down. Super Mario Kart, Super Soccer, A Link to the Past, Demon's Crest, Yoshi's Island, Stunt Race FX, Kirby's Dream Course, Poppin' Twinbee, Star Fox, Contra 3, Kirby Superstar, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Kirby's Dream Land 3, Super Metroid, Super Mario World, Pilot Wings, F-Zero, Star Fox 2, Super Punch-Out, Legend of the Mystical Ninja, Super Mario All-Stars, and Breath of Fire 2.
Super Mario All-Stars is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising because 2 of those games would be available on the NES app already. But I don't know, it is exciting to have a way to play those versions of those games because you can save them, and I understand these games all have save states, whatever. But the updated graphical style is, I think, what a lot of people like grew up really playing.
For sure, it's definitely what I think of these games as now, because it's what I definitely put the most time into, because we got rid of our NES when we got an SNES.
Yeah. So you just ended up playing more of it there. Other interesting things on here, Star Fox 2, I think is sort of crazy that Star Fox 2 only came out last year on the Super NES Classic. So cool for them to be bringing out. Remember, I was just excited about a new Super Nintendo game. We got one last year.
Or 2017, right?
Was it 2017 or 2018? I don't remember. 2017. The NES Classic. Let's not look it up, Mark. I do like that this list includes a lot of games that have the Super FX chip in it.
Stunt Race FX. I'd be very excited for that.
Yeah, and both of the Star Fox games. There are some other games in here that aren't included on the Super NES Classic Edition, like Breath of Fire 2, Legend of the Mystical Ninja.
Super Soccer, Demon's Crest,
Poppin' Twinbee. So that's all kind of neat, and a lot of these games have been available on the Super NES Virtual Console on the 3DS, which is all like adds up to these are games and publishers that Nintendo has continued to work with to put those games out.
And it's all speculation at this point. Nothing may come of any of this, but I really hope it does.
Yeah, me too. And that would make that whole platform more vibrant because of it. And I mean, we were just saying that, like, oh yeah, here's one more game that Nintendo's putting out on the 3DS, but that platform is almost dead at this point. So whatever good virtual console work they did there, whatever good virtual console work they did on the Wii U, that's all becoming a thing of the past now. And if the Nintendo games are going to be playable on any platform, it needs to be on the Switch. Otherwise, they're not playable.
Finally, Just Dance is getting its own movie.
What?
Apparently, Screen Gems has acquired the motion picture rights to the game. A number of studios are reported to have been interested in acquiring the rights. Good on you, Screen Gems. I can't wait for this movie to come out so we can talk about it.
Yep, so we can get Ryan Mogi back in here to suffer through a movie she doesn't want to watch.
Maybe it'll be really good.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of the news. Okay, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you enjoyed it, if you enjoyed us, if you enjoy this experience, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. All that helps us out tremendously. You could share the episode on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share stuff. That will show other people that you listen to this thing and will show us to other people. It's good, Mark. Everyone wins.
It's great.
On Twitter, I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MK Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. You can check out the Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thanks for listening.
Campfire.